Hello students, welcome to class 6th Science, Chapter 5, Separation of Substances. There are many instances when we notice a substance being separated from a mixture of materials. Tea leaves are separated from the liquid with a strainer while preparing tea. Grain is separated from stalks while harvesting. Milk or curd is churned to separate the butter. As we learnt in chapter 3, we gin cotton to separate its seeds from the fiber. Perhaps you might have eaten salted dalia or poha. If you have found that it had chilies in it, you may have carefully taken them out before eating. Suppose you are given a basket containing mangoes and guavas and asked to separate them. What would you do? Pick out one kind and place them in separate container, right? Seems easy, but what if the materials we want to separate are much smaller in size? Imagine you are given a glass of sand with salt mixed in it. Impossible even to think of separating salt from this mixture by picking out grains of sand by hand. Methods of separation. We will discuss some simple methods of separating substances that are mixed together. You may come across some of these methods being used in a day-to-day activities. Ant picking. Bring a pack of grain purchased from a shop to the classroom. Now spread the grain on a sheet of paper. Do you find only one grain of grain on the sheet of paper? Are there pieces of stone, husk, broken grain, or particles of any other grain in it? Now remove with your hands the pieces of stone, hooks, and other grains from it. This method of ant picking can be used for separating slightly larger size impurities like particle of dust, stone, and husk from wheat, rice, or pulses. Threshing. You might have seen bundles of wheat or paddy stalk lying in the fields after harvesting the crop. Stalks are dried in the sun before the grain is separated from them. Each stalk has many grain seeds attached to it. Imagine the seeds in hundreds of bundles of stalks lying in the field. How does the farmer separate grain seeds from these bundle of stalks? One may pluck mangoes or guavas from the trees, but grain seeds are much smaller than mangoes and guavas. So, plucking them from their stalk is impossible. How do one separate grains from their stalks? The process that is used to separate grains from stalks, etc. is threshing. In this process, the stalks are beaten to free the grain seeds. Sometimes, threshing is done with the help of bullocks. Machines are also used to thresh large quantity of grain. Winnowing. Make a mixture of dry sand with sawdust or powdered dry leaves. Keep this mixture on a newspaper. Look at the mixture carefully. Can the two different components be made out easily? Are the size of the particles of the two components similar? Would it be possible to separate the components by hand picking? Now take your mixture to an open ground and stand on a raised platform. Put the mixture in a plate or a sheet of paper. Hold the plate of the sheet paper containing the mixture at your shoulder height. Tilt it slightly so that the mixture slides out of it slowly. what happens? Do both the components, sand and sawdust, fall at the same place? Is there a component that blows away? Do the wind manage to separate the two components? This method of separating components of a mixture is called winnowing. Winnowing is used to separate heavier and lighter component of the mixture by wind or by blowing air. This method is commonly used by farmers to separate lighter husk particles from heavier seeds of grain. The husk particles are carried away by the wind. The seeds of the grain get separated and form a heap near the platform of winnowing. The separated husk is used for many purposes such as fodder for cattle. Sieving. Sometimes we may wish to prepare a dish of flour. We need to remove impurities and bran that make the present of it. What do? We use a sieve and pour the flour into it. Sieving allows the fine flour particles to pass through the holes of the sieve, which are bigger impurities remain on the sieve. In a flour mill, impurities like husk and stones are removed from the wheat before grinding. Usually, a bag full of wheat is poured on a slanting sieve. The sieving removes pieces of stones, stalk and husk that may still remain in the wheat after threshing and winnowing. You may have also noticed similar sieves being used at construction sites to separate pebbles and stones from sand. Sedimentation, decantation and filtration. Sometimes it may not be possible to separate components of a mixture by winnowing and unpicking. For example, there may be lighter impurities like dust or soil particles in rice or pulses. How are such impurities separated from rice or pulses before cooking? Rice or pulses are usually washed before cooking. When you add water to these, the impurities like dust and soil particles get separated. These impurities go into water, which becomes a little muddy. Now, what will sink to the bottom of the vessel? Rice or dust? Why? Have you seen that vessels is tilted to pour out the dirty water? When the heavier components in the mixture settles after water is added to it, the process is called sedimentation. When the water along with the dust is removed, the process is called decantation. The same principle is used in separating mixture of two liquids that do not mix with each other. For example, oil and water from this mixture can be separated by this process. If a mixture of such liquid is allowed to stand for some time, they form two separate layers. The components that forms the top layer can be separated by decantation. Let us again consider a mixture of solid and liquid. After preparing tea, what do you do to remove the tea leaves? Now pour the tea through a strainer. Did all the leaves remain in the strainer? The process is called filtration. Evaporation. Heat a beaker containing some water. Allow it to boil. If you continue heating, would the water turn into steam and disappear completely? Now add 2 spoons of salt to water in another beaker and stir it well. Do you see any change in the color of the water? Can you see any salt in the beaker after stirring? Heat the beaker containing salt water. Let the water boil away. What is left in the beaker? In this activity, we use the process of evaporation to separate a mixture of water and salt. The process of conversion of water into its vapor is called evaporation. When the steam comes in contact with a metal plate cooled with ice, it condenses and forms liquid water. The water drops that you observed falling into the plate due to the condensation of steam. The process of conversion of water vapor into its liquid form is called condensation.